The Easton haunting. When darkness came to Connecticut, in a quiet Connecticut town, a skeptical family discovered that some intrusions cannot be locked out. They arrive from within. Easton, Connecticut sits nestled in the rolling hills of Fairfield County, a landscape of stone walls and colonial architecture where the weight of accumulated centuries presses close against the present day. The town maintains the character of rural New England even as the broader region transforms around it, its roads winding between properties where families have maintained residence across multiple generations. During the 1970s, this quiet corner of western Connecticut finds itself at the center of what investigators will later describe as an unusual concentration of paranormal activity, a density of reported phenomena that defies easy explanation and draws the attention of researchers who have made such mysteries their life's work. The proximity of Easton to Monroe, where Ed and Lorraine Warren maintain both their residence and the headquarters of the New England Society for Psychic Research, means that cases originating in the area reach the couple through well-established channels, referrals from parish priests who know the Warrens' work, from local law enforcement officers who have learned that certain situations require expertise beyond what the Academy provides, from community members who understand that the Warrens respond to calls for help with the same professional commitment, regardless of whether the case will ever make headlines. Ed Warren, speaking years later at one of his university lectures on demonology, describes Fairfield County during this period as experiencing phenomena at a rate that exceeds what statistical variation alone can explain. He attributes this concentration partly to the region's layered history, the accumulated spiritual residue of centuries of human habitation, tragedy, and unresolved suffering. He also points to the cultural currents of the decade itself, the widespread exploration of occult practices by individuals who possess no understanding of the forces they invoke, no appreciation for the spiritual consequences of treating demonic entities as entertainment or psychological metaphor. The Easton case arrives through this network of connections, brought to the Warrens by a family whose situation has progressed beyond what they can endure alone, whose initial skepticism has given way to exhaustion and fear in equal measure. The family occupies a property they have called home for several years without incident, a detail that becomes significant in the Warren investigative framework. The phenomena do not emerge gradually from the history of the house itself, but arrive suddenly without apparent precipitating cause. The family reports no recent renovations that might have disturbed something dormant in the structure, no significant life changes that might have opened spiritual vulnerabilities, no exploration of occult materials or practices that might have invited attention from inhuman forces. The disturbances simply begin, manifesting first in environmental changes that the family initially attempts to explain through purely material causes. Persistent, unexplained odors move through the house without identifiable source, defying the family's efforts to locate their origin or eliminate them through cleaning. The scents shift in character and intensity, sometimes acrid and chemical, other times organic and putrid, appearing and dissipating according to no pattern the family can discern. Sudden dramatic temperature drops occur in the main living areas, localized cold spots that form without correlation to weather conditions or the operation of heating and cooling systems. The home's electrical systems begin to malfunction in ways that electricians called to the property cannot explain or repair. Lights flicker in sequence through the rooms during the early morning hours, moving from space to space as though something invisible passes through the house on a regular patrol. The auditory phenomena that follow confirm what the family has begun to suspect, that the disturbances originating in their home cannot be explained through mechanical failure or environmental factors. Voices emerge from empty rooms, indistinct but unmistakably present, carrying tones that register as neither fully male nor fully female. A persistent low sound establishes itself as a near-constant presence, described by family members as existing somewhere between a hum and a moan, seeming to emanate from within the walls themselves rather than from any specific location. On two separate occasions, distinct and prolonged knocking originates from within a sealed interior closet. The family investigates immediately each time, finding the space empty, undisturbed, offering no explanation for the sounds that brought them running. The visual component arrives last in the progression, the appearance of phenomena the family can no longer dismiss as auditory illusion or environmental coincidence. Two family members, on separate occasions and without knowledge of each other's experience, observe a dark, compact form moving along the floor of the ground-level hallway. The entity appears solid rather than translucent, moving with apparent deliberation before disappearing without reaching any exit or entering any room. The independent corroboration of this sighting eliminates the possibility of individual misperception and confirms for the family that their home has become subject to an intrusion they cannot understand or control. The patriarch of the household, a man who has approached the situation throughout with firm skepticism, finds himself forced to acknowledge that the explanations he has clung to no longer account for what his family experiences daily. His frustration manifests not only in his inability to protect his household from the disturbances, but in the recognition that his entire framework for understanding reality has proven inadequate to the situation in which he finds himself. It is this combination of fear and frustrated disbelief that characterizes his state when the referral reaches Ed and Lorraine Warren. A psychological profile Warren recognizes immediately from decades of similar cases. Ed and Lorraine Warren arrive in Easton within weeks of the initial contact, the short distance from Monroe making rapid response straightforward. Lorraine's first impression upon entering the property carries particular significance in the Warren investigative methodology. She perceives the location as having been penetrated by something that arrived from outside rather than something that grew from the accumulated history of the site itself. This distinction guides the direction of the investigation. A haunting generated by the location's history suggests residual phenomena, the psychic imprint of past suffering replaying without intelligence or intent. What Lorraine perceives instead is an intelligent presence, something that chose this location and these people through deliberate action rather than circumstance. The house itself carries no extraordinary historical weight. Research into the property reveals no pattern of tragedy or violence that might explain the phenomena through conventional paranormal frameworks. The land shows no particular history of suffering, no record of events that would account for the character of what the Warrens encounter. This absence of historical explanation reinforces Lorraine's initial assessment. The presence infesting the home originates externally, representing an intrusion rather than an emergence. Ed Warren conducts his systematic physical survey of the property while Lorraine continues her spiritual walkthrough, documenting the locations and character of the phenomena the family has described. She pauses at the sealed interior closet, identified as the source of the mysterious knocking, the space drawing her attention before any family member directs her toward it. She describes a concentrated agitation in the area immediately surrounding the closet, a tightly focused zone of spiritual disturbance that contrasts sharply with the more diffuse quality of phenomena experienced elsewhere in the house. Ed Warren notes the closet as the probable point of greatest activity and recommends it receive particular attention in any subsequent spiritual intervention. The danger presented by the Easton situation falls into what Ed Warren categorizes as active infestation, a genuine intelligent presence working to establish increasing degrees of influence over both the physical space and the human occupants. The family's patriarch, who began the process as a declared skeptic, presents by the time of the Warren visit with visible distress that goes beyond simple fear of the inexplicable. He appears exhausted in a way that sleep does not remedy, short-tempered with family members in a manner they describe as uncharacteristic, struggling with what he describes as a persistent sense of being wrong. Not afraid of something external, but afflicted from within, as though his own emotional life has been contaminated at the source. This interior quality of disturbance represents what Ed Warren consistently identifies as the most significant indicator of advancing demonic influence. The dramatic external phenomena, while alarming and disruptive, can be survived through courage and determination. The subtler corruption of the individual's inner life proves far more dangerous. The erosion of peace, the degradation of relationships within the household, the progressive diminishment of the capacity for joy or rest, the sense that one's own thoughts and emotions have become unreliable. These interior dimensions of infestation worsen over time regardless of whether the external phenomena continue or intensify. Warren warns the family that without intervention, this corruption of the inner life will progress, potentially leading to psychological breakdown, violence within the family system, or spiritual consequences that extend beyond the resolution of the immediate haunting. The spiritual intervention proceeds with the assistance of a priest from a neighboring parish, a clergyman who has worked with the Warrens on previous Fairfield County cases and understands both the procedures and the spiritual demands of clergy-assisted paranormal intervention. The blessing of the house moves systematically room by room, with particular concentration on the ground floor hallway where the dark form has been observed and the sealed closet identified as a primary point of activity. Lorraine maintains her protective prayer stance throughout the ceremony, a practice she describes as creating a spiritual barrier that limits the ability of inhuman forces to interfere with the sacred rites being performed. Ed documents the proceedings with characteristic thoroughness, monitoring the physical responses of the house throughout the blessing. He tracks temperature changes, observing the behavior of the family's pets for signs of distress or unusual awareness, listening for auditory anomalies that might occur as the prayers progress through the space. The closet, when opened during the blessing and subjected to direct prayer, produces a brief but significant temperature drop that both Warren and the officiating priest note simultaneously. The cold radiates outward from the opened space with an intensity that exceeds what the season or the condition of the house can explain. The temperature gradually normalizes as the prayers continue, the priest maintaining his focus despite the manifestation. The family, present during the ceremony as Ed and Lorraine recommend, reports that the sense of being watched, a quality they have described as perpetual and inescapable since the phenomena began, lifts noticeably during the final prayers of the blessing. The oppressive quality that has characterized the atmosphere of the home for months dissipates in a manner the family experiences as immediate and unmistakable. By the time the Warren team departs, the household reports that the sensation has not returned, that for the first time in months, the house feels like their own again. The Easton case represents the kind of geographically proximate investigation that forms a significant portion of the Warren workload throughout the 1970s. Cases drawn from the network of Fairfield County communities surrounding Monroe, where the Warrens' reputation makes them the natural first resource for families encountering phenomena beyond their comprehension or endurance. Ed Warren's willingness to respond to cases lacking the dramatic public profile of Amityville or Enfield, to give the same careful, committed attention to an Easton family as to investigations that make international news, remains something those who work with him consistently identify as defining his approach to the field. Lorraine Warren reflects in later interviews that the quieter cases, the ones no one ever hears about, represent in many ways the core of what they do. The direct service to frightened families who have nowhere else to turn, the resolution of suffering that will never be the subject of a book or a film, the ordinary pastoral work of demonology conducted in the ordinary rooms of ordinary Connecticut homes. These cases do not generate headlines or controversy, but they represent the daily reality of families who discover that the boundaries between the natural and supernatural worlds remain more permeable than modern materialism acknowledges. that some intrusions cannot be locked out because they arrive from dimensions that doors and walls were never designed to exclude. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.